All right, what's up everyone? It's Matt Mrozik. This will be the second work in progress on the Age of Apocalypse Colossus kit by DXA Design. So last video was getting the chrome / polished silver down on Colossus, and he looks really good. I'm super happy with the way this looks. I sent photos to my client. He loves it, which is more important. So we have this kind of polished, it's not quite chrome, not quite silver, somewhere in the middle. I call it muted chrome because it's got a nice shimmer to it, but it's not silver, meaning you can't see the particles. So I really like the way this looks. So this is a very tedious part of the process, masking. So but, sometimes I use silly putty, sometimes I use tape. Tape is my preferred method of masking simply because I get a very clean line and I have like almost zero touch-ups to do when I'm done taping. Silly putty, it's a little trickier in my opinion. The advantages and disadvantages to tape. The disadvantage is that if you have, if your painted surface isn't prepped properly and you don't have the paint on there and you don't have good adhesion, you're going to get lifting. If you tape too early, you can leave tape tracks in your finish. This is actually dried going on 36 hours. I didn't get any painting done yesterday just because I'm really busy with my life. So, which is kind of nice with being self-employed. So anyway, advantage to tape is it's cleaner. Oh, another disadvantage to tape is it's time consuming. It takes a very long time to mask. But when I'm doing a piece like this where I have a lot of areas to cover and a lot of details I want to go in, and I know it's going to stay masked for quite a bit of time, tape is my preferred method because I can put the tape on there. I can leave it on there for days, weeks. As long as the painted surface is prepped properly and it's cured all the way, I can leave it on there indefinitely and it'll come off no problem. Advantage to silly putty. Some people think it's easier. The main advantage to silly putty is that it won't lift any paint, except, which I have had it happen, if you silly putty an area and then you spray an area and then like seal it, sometimes that silly putty will lift the paint, the part that you painted on, because what it does is I can never get the silly putty thin enough like I can tape. Silly putty will melt if you use a solvent-based paint, like a lacquer. I use lots of lacquers. If I were to spray silly putty then a lacquer, a good chance that silly putty is going to melt and stick to my surface. So I use silly putty for quick things, but if I'm going to do something that's going to be taped for a long time, taping is my preferred method. A lot of people hate it. I don't mind it. I find it rather relaxing. It's like back in the Gundam days, masking tape. So I'm doing stuff like this instead of taking big pieces and trying to curve around all these difficult shapes. What I do is and I've shown this on many other builds, but I'll do it again here. It's only work in progress videos are basically the same steps over and over again, just a different piece, a different kit. So what I do is I just take some tape, like on my workbench here, and I just string it out like this, and I'll just cut off pieces at like relatively small pieces at a time. So the larger the curve, the larger piece I can get away with. And then I take it here and I start in one direction and try to continue to go in that direction so that when I peel it up, it all kind of peels off at the same. And I overlap it quite a bit by just kind of sticking it on there with my X-Acto blade, and then I take a toothpick that's been blunted. I take the tip and I just bite the tip off so it's not sharp. And I go in and I seal the edge, just like, oops. Just like that, and I screwed that one up. So we can save it. There we go, and fold back out. This is Tamiya tape. In the last video I did, I used washi tape. I bought some a long time ago. Washi tape is a paper tape. Tamiya is basically a paper tape too. But washi tape is like for crafting and stuff. And I bought some a long time ago and it worked out really well. So I bought some other different washi tape and it didn't work very well. It wasn't sticky enough. So I'm going to go back and buy the original version I bought. But yeah, so I just go in here and I take small pieces and I just go in and lay it down. I don't force it into place. I let it loose and then I go in there and let it conform to the shape. Just like this. So this takes a while. I got to do, sorry, I got something in my eye. I got to do the arms, I got to do the legs, and I got to do the feet. So quite a bit of masking. So in my last video, I mentioned I thought I was going to do the elbow pads and knee pads in leather. I think I might do metallic red, and I might do them a high gloss because what I got going on here was this kind of semi gloss on this metal, And if I do the pads in like a high gloss and then do some of the details in a muted metallic, it'll be a real nice contrast of not only colors, but finishes. So that's kind of my thought process. I've been kind of given, again, by my client, free reign to do my own take on this. So I love it when I'm allowed to do that, because I can just kind of do my own thing. You know, keep the colors, you know, consistent with what's in the comics, but then do my own version of that. So I'm constantly making sure that I've got tape where I need to go along the edge here. But you can see here, this is a real nice sharp edge. Silly Putty, I just couldn't get it to sit that flat. And also, Silly Putty will sag under its own weight. So when I know I need something to stay masked for a long time, I don't like Silly Putty because it'll sag. It moves over time just under its own weight. You know, because it's basically rubber. It's a plasticized rubber. So even though this time consuming, this is my preferred method of masking. And you get really clean edges. Like, I can get clean edges on Silly Putty too, but it actually takes more effort to get a cleaner edge, in my opinion. And I'm always fighting. I can't handle the piece. Like, if there's Silly Putty all over this arm, I can't pick it up once there's Silly Putty on there, because my hand's going to move the Silly Putty, which will affect the masking. So it's really important that I can handle a piece after it's been masked. So I can't do that with Silly Putty. So I'll use it for quick things. Like if I go masking the inside of a mouth, or if I paint eyes first, and it's very rare that I paint eyes first. If I want to do eyes first and then mask them real quick and paint around the eyes, I'll do that. Or if I have, let's say I do have a masking error and I need to spray a little more or whatever, I'll use Silly Putty real quick to do that. But for the most part, tape is my preferred method of masking. And yes, it takes a while. So another way you can do this, which I've also shown, it doesn't work quite as well for this application because the curves are so complex. I'm going around all these muscles, and I've showed it before. Maybe I can find an example here to show you on this piece. Let's say I get all these undercuts in here and everything too. A lot of undercuts with all the knee padding and stuff. Now, a place I might use Silly Putty, and I might, is under here in the knees. I don't know. I'll probably just mask those two. I feel way more comfortable with masking tape. Another method you can do, which I've shown before, is you put the tape on really loose, you seal it to where you want it to go, and then you cut it, and then you cut it off, and then take off the excess. That works too. In this instance, where I've got a lot of muscles to go around, a lot of complex curves. What I'm doing right here, where I cut a little piece, put it in, and then seal it, to me, is the most accurate and best way to do this. Again, just to mask these pieces will take me most of the day. But again, I rather spend the time doing it and knowing that it's going to be accurate, and I don't have, I always have touch-ups. I never get away without having touch-ups, but they're very far and few between when I do masking. It's rare that I have to go in and touch up along the edge of something. With Silly Putty, I always have to go back in with a brush and touch up every time, and that can be time-consuming. And also, if you have a lot of different layers of, I'm going to cut a little bit here. Can't see this undercut, but I had like a corner of tape. I don't like the way it looks. It's also hard to do that if you've done a lot of shading and different layers of paint. To match that edge can be difficult sometimes, so you're having to color match. Because you just can't, if you're just doing a solid color, it's fine. But if you're going in and you're doing a lot of shading and stuff, then you have to touch up the edges. Well, then you just can't put down your base coat, because your base coat has all the different colors on top of it, all the shading and stuff. So you got to color match it. And an easy way to kind of get around that is just to do a darker version of your base coat, because it just kind of adds like a little bit of a natural shadow up against that piece that you've masked against. So yeah, so I'm not going to record all of this because it's going to take me forever. Not forever, but several hours. But this is the process I'm going to go through on this guy to get everything masked off on the body. And then once we get there, I will throw a light coat of primer over all these metal parts because red, as I've always said before, does a really shitty job of hiding. And I might be able to get away to go right over this. We'll see. Maybe I'll go over with some silver. Since this is already silver, I could do a base coat of silver to put the red on top of, which will help brighten it up a little bit because I want to go in and do some shading on the red. Yeah. So I'm kind of like, you know, looking at the comics, I kind of want like a comic look, you know, kind of nice and vibrant, nice contrast in the colors. I was looking at the metal on this, like, oh, maybe I went a little too heavy on the shading on the metal, but actually looks, in person, it looks really good. It's a little more punchy on the camera, which is kind of odd. Usually in person it looks punchier, and on the camera it looks a little flatter, but metallics kind of play different tricks on your eyes with lighting and stuff. So here, I'll just do around this edge and I'll continue to talk because why not? So I'm just going in here and hopefully I'm in frame and just making sure I don't use an optivisor when I do this. I just kind of eyeball it using, you know, I don't put an optivisor on very often. When I'm painting eyes, I do optimize. I'll wear an optivisor. Sometimes when I'm masking really small areas, I'll put an optivisor on to make sure I'm getting the tape where I need it to go. Also, before I taped anything, I did a tape test. I took some of my tape and I put it on the various pieces and I ripped it off to make sure that I didn't have any paint lift. You want to find that out sooner than later because if you do have paint lift, then you can try to fix that area before you go any further, or you can just switch to Silly Putty and, you know, try to keep that paint from lifting up. But I get paint lift every once in a while, and it's usually like in one spot, and it's usually because maybe it's like there'll be a speck, like I'll pull up the tape and there'll be like a little speck, and that's usually because maybe there was a piece of dust on the surface before I painted, and I didn't get it off, so the paint didn't stick. So that's an easy, just a little brush touch with the brush. This silver is hard. This would be hard to brush touch up because of the finish on it and the shine. So once I'm done going around this edge on this side, I'll go around this edge and then I'll use saran wrap, you know, to cover everything else up. And I always go overboard with saran wrap and stuff because it never fails. No matter how much I think I've got it covered, a lot of times I'll miss a little spot. I'll pull the tape off and there'll be one little spot where I didn't tape. So sometimes, you know, what was the last one? Oh, the Magneto I just did. I managed to get everything really well. So no issues there. So here's a good example where I'm actually going to, no, I'm not going to. I was going to cut this, but I'm not going to. I was going to overlap and then cut, but I'm not going to. Using Tamiya tape, like I said before, it is, even though the washi tape is like kind of a cheaper alternative, the Tamiya tape just works. You know, it's one of those things where it's one of those areas that I don't skimp. I try not to skimp on as far as like materials cost. Paint and tape. It is what it is. You want to make sure you have good tape, good paint. So like I said before, I was kind of thinking last night that I was going to do red leather. I'm going to send a text to my client and just to make sure that he's cool with me doing metallic red and a high gloss for the pads, because they do look metal to me, and then doing leather for these straps that hold them in place, like a red leather for the straps, because in the comic that's red also. But you can add a lot of interest to a piece just by the different finishes, but by mixing up flat, glossy, and semi-flat or matte finishes, you can add a lot of interest to a piece, not just by color but by finish. So it's like those magnetos I do when you add just that little bit of high gloss, like on the helmets and stuff. That little bit of finish contrast is a nice touch. It kind of helps break things up a little bit. Almost done going around this edge. So even though I'm painting full time now, I'm also my kid's personal Uber, and it's summertime, so they got all these camps and soccer and dance to go to. So it's like some days I just don't get up in the studio to paint or work, or I don't get as much done as I'd like to get done. And I also wanted to make sure that this silver really had a good chance to cure, so I was okay kind of waiting another day to making sure that it had a good chance to just really get nice and cured before I started masking on top of it. So sometimes it's just better to wait a day or two and let things just dry than trying to rush it, you know, because you'll spend more time trying to fix it later than if you would have just waited. One thing I like about DXA design kits is they don't do switch outs. Like, he doesn't have like 5 different heads, it's one head. So here where I got this really deep kind of curve, I let the tape loose and I'm going in there and conforming it to the shape. And then I see I'm going to overlap in a little piece right here where it's not such a clean edge. And there we go. So I've masked the edge on this side of the shoulder pad and this leather strap. So I've got to do this arm, I've got to do both legs, so I've got a mask in here and then around the thigh, and then I got to do the feet, and the other arm is attached to the torso. So I'm going to do that, and then when we come back, I'll find out what we're going to do as far as red goes, and we'll spray some paint. Okay, so I got the masking done. I didn't get done yesterday. I had been, again, carting my kids around everywhere and just stuff with life. So I thought I was going to do the pads next, and I sent a message to my client telling him ideas for this. And so I am going to do metallic red on the pads and stuff like that, and I'm going to do red leather for like these strap areas and on top of the head. And so this stuff. So I thought I was going to do the high gloss metallic red first, but then I was looking at the pieces on what I want to do, and I decided I'm going to do the red leather first because the main reason is because on the back of the legs here. So they've got this really nice, just a ton of detail in the sculpt. Part of the reason is I want to do the red leather first is because I want to paint these areas of the pads red leather. It kind of looks like a leather material. And I want to paint that first so I can mask it off and then do the high metallic. And I'll do the red leather here too on this strap. And typically what I do is when I'm painting and masking, I work from the lowest spot up, because it's much easier to mask this area off than to try to mask around this edge right here. And the reason is because there's not a lot of surface area here for tape to stick, and I'm going to keep going on with tape. So one reason I'm using tape on this is because I need to mask the silver off on the body, spray the leather, let that dry, keep this masked, then mask over the leather, and then so on. Just keep building up the layers until I get done with everything that I want painted. So that's why I'm using tape and not silly putty, because this stuff was going to stay masked through the other colors. So for the leather color, I'm going to use, let me look at the boots to see if I want to do anything. So I think I'll do the soles of the boots, this red leather too. It'll be a nice contrast with the shiny bright metallic or high gloss metallic red. So what I need to do first is I need to get, again, since red is a really crappy color with hiding, I need to get all of these in the same color. This shoulder pad is another good example. I thought about doing this whole thing in high gloss metallic, but looking at it, it's got this nice kind of cloth detail here, so I'm going to make this red leather, then I'll mask that off and then do the high gloss red on that. Same thing with the strap that goes around his chest. There's another part of the strap right there, and then his head, and the bandana part of the head. We're going to do that all the same. So that was my thought process. So the color I'm going to use for the red leathers, I have this color custom mix up I made up for the last Gladiator I did, and it's not quite the right color now, but by the time I add the shading, it'll darken it down and I'll get it to where I want. So I got to think when I'm doing colors, I have to think about, okay, I know I want to get to a certain area, but I know I'm going to do shading, so I have to figure out how is that shading going to affect the overall color. So I usually start a little bit brighter and then bring it down, or vice versa. So it's a lot of things going on in my head as far as the process and the steps needed to do all this. So the first thing I need to do is I think I'm going to go through and I might just hit this real quick with a little Krylon spray can primer. I'll do that with all the parts, and then it'll be ready to accept the base coat of red. So as long as it's all the same color. Oh, same thing here on the arms. I'm going to do this lower part here, right here, red leather, mask that off. These straps right here I'm going to make metal, because these have some little clamps that go here. And if you think about it, it's the kind of clamp that you put over and then pull over to tighten. So I'm going to make this metal, like a steel color with the clamps that go on there. So again, you have to think about the order in which the colors go down and masking to make your life easier. There's still a lot of masking, but you try to make it as easy as possible. So I'm going to go throw a coat of Krylon gray primer on all these pieces to get them in the same spot. And then we'll go through and I'll put some, I'll show you the base red that we're going to put down. Okay, so I went through to hit everything that's going to get this kind of red leather effect with a light coat of Krylon gray primer. One thing I found out is that I don't think the kit had any primer on it to begin with, so that may have been one reason why I had that fisheye problem with that paint, because I should have probably put some gray primer down first. It probably would have sealed it better. So anyway, I'm going through and putting down a base coat of this red I have that I mixed up previously from the last Gladiator kit I did. And it's going to get darkened down quite a bit when I do the shading. So I want kind of a dark, like a deep red leather look for the leather areas. And then with the metallic red, it'll be a little bit brighter. It'll be a nice contrast. And then when I go in and paint these stripes, these other little bits of some steel or other metallics, it's going to have a lot of detail in these parts. So, yeah, so there's nothing really to show here, just base coating all these parts. The primer's had about an hour to dry. I just put on a real light coat, just enough to kind of get everything in the same tonal area. Because another thing, even the parts that didn't have any of the silver paint on it from doing the chrome, the stock color, like of the resin or the primer, it's got a lot of green in it. So a good example I can show you here on the shoulder, on the arm pads. So this is the bare kit right here, and this is the primer. So if you look at them together, like side by side, this actually has a lot of green to it, and you may not notice it now, but if I didn't put if I didn't prime this and just put paint over it, that would affect the final color. So your primer has a huge effect on what your paint does as far as the tone it takes on. So it's really important that when you go to do a color, that the primer or base coat is all consistent, so that when you go to base coat your actual color, it stays consistent. You don't get these weird, like, very subtle color shifts in your color, which you may not be apparent right at first, but start putting pieces together and like, why is this off just a hair? Like, it could be off like half a shade or have a little color shift tint to it. So it's real important to make sure that you get everything in the same starting point before you start adding colors in. So that's why I added that little light coat of Krylon gray primer. I just really misted it on. I didn't put it on real heavy. And it also gives this paint something to bite to. So yeah, I didn't worry about like scuffing up the other paint because it's kind of a semi-gloss or finish. Now if it was a high gloss finish, I would have scuffed it up just very slightly with a sanding sponge. But it's got a little bit of tooth to it already, so I needed to do that. But yeah, so anytime you're gonna like paint a high gloss piece and then you're gonna mask and then do a matte finish or any other kind of color, it's real important to scuff up that high gloss finish, because otherwise your paint won't have anything to stick to. It'll just kind of, it'll look fine at the beginning, but it could, if you go to mask on it, it could peel off, it could flake off. So it's real important to have either a flat or a semi-flat surface to apply paint to, so it has something to stick to. Lacquers are a little more forgiving because they are a solvent base and they will tend to bite into a paint surface anyway, but it's always a good idea to scuff up the area that you're going to paint on. But since I put primer on here, I put the primer on top of a matte surface. The primer bites into that matte surface, and the primer itself is a matte finish, and the paint will bite into that. So it's there's a lot to think about as far as like when you go to paint. How your primer affects everything, the colors, and making sure paint's going to stick. And so, yeah, so I'm not going to show a lot of this. It's just base coating, and then when I come back, we'll do some shading. Okay, so I got everything base coated, and I just got done doing this big strap, so it's a little tacky. So I'm going to start shading the stuff I did first, which had about 30-40 minutes to dry, because I like to let stuff dry for a little bit before doing shading. Again, I'll just show a little bit on camera, and then I'll do the rest, and then we'll go from there. So I'll start with one of these legs here. And I've got in my airbrush, this is a shadow color I'd mixed up for a Deadpool I did a while ago. So I'm just using that, which is a couple shades darker than what I base coated in. And let's see how this looks on here. So I take my needle guard off so I can get in here a little tighter. Again, it's one of those situations where it's going to be fighting trying to show you what I'm doing and actually being able to see what I'm doing. Let's bring this down a little bit. And we'll bring in some more light. Yeah. 1 second. So, so I got the needle guard off so I can get in tighter. Got my air pressure, I don't know, set it whatever it's at. And let me put on a glove so I can see. I like to kind of use my kind of just spray it on my hand here, see what it's doing. So that should be pretty good. So this will darken this all down overall. Let's see how dark this is. I may go with a little darker tone. This may be okay. Let's see. So it may be okay. Yeah, it's kind of giving me what I think what I want. Again, once I seal this and flatten it down, it'll pop a little bit more. So I just work slowly, building it up a little bit at a time. So today's goal is to get the leather done, and get these little metal bits done, and these straps done, and then I can seal that, let that dry overnight, and then get it ready to mask tomorrow to do the metallic. So it's a full day just doing this one color and little metallic bits and stuff. People always ask me what my air pressure's at. It's set it to where it's it's set to where it sprays the way I want it to spray. I can't even see the numbers on my air gauges anymore because they're all dirty and melted and everything. So I don't even know. I can't even tell you what my air pressure is if I want to tell you what it is. Back when I first started doing like a lot of Gundams, I was really meticulous about making sure my air pressure was a certain number, and I just stopped doing that. It didn't matter. The number doesn't matter. What matters is that the paint comes out the way you want it to come. I think that's showing up in camera. You can kind of see the shading there. Again, there's a little bit of paint comes out at a time. I don't have it, not hosing it on, just real light, just building it up. I'm gonna hit under here too, where it goes up into the foot. So that's it. Just gonna go in and do all this, and then I'll seal it, and then we'll do some metallics. Alrighty, so I got all the red areas sprayed and sealed, and they look really good. So now what I'm doing, see here, like on the back of the leg here, I'm going in and hand painting these buckle areas, and I mixed up kind of a custom color. This is a Vallejo steel with a little bit of black in it, and I'm going in and just hand painting these kind of strap areas. And I'll try to show you. It's nothing too exciting, but I have to wear an optivisor to do this, so I'll try to put it in frame. And it's just, you know, this usually takes 2 coats, so I'm just going in here and hand painting these areas. And then I'm going to paint these little things right here too. I may do those a different metallic. So I'm just going in, and so I've got to paint them on the, I did them on the legs already. Now I'm doing them on the arms. And then once this dries, I'll paint these little tidbits here, and I'll seal everything. And I'll do a little bit of dry brushing on these steel straps just to bring out some of the detail, so it's not so flat. It's nothing too crazy, just going here and hand painting. The pants are hanging up in the spray booth, they're drying. So these Vallejo metallics typically don't cover right away. Typically you have to do 2 coats. Just like that. And there you go. Once that dries, that'll look good, and we'll seal that again. Let me show you what I did. So here's the head. Looks good with the nice shading, the wrinkles and stuff. And then we did the crap. I just hit this with the paintbrush. See, I got any paint? I got some paint on this. Good thing it's been sealed because it wiped right off. It's being acrylic. So what I'll do is I can glue these 2 pieces together. This is the bandana that he wears. I can glue these together, and then I might, I don't know if I'm going to glue these to the head or not. I think I will, because in the box there kind of is all together. So I'll end up gluing this together, gluing the head together. But that looks good. For areas like on the arms here, I'm going to, I'm not sure I'm going to do any other little details on here. I may, I think I'm just going to do this all metallic red. I may do these little spots here, something different, maybe this color I'm doing now, just to break it up a little bit. And then what else? That's it. So I'm going to hand paint everything, seal it, and we'll do some dry brushing when we come back. Okay, so this part of the red is done. Very long day, 12, 13 hour day, something like that. Crazy long, but it's done and it looks really good. So on pieces like this with the strap, I base coated this with the metallic and I did some dry brushing to weather that, so that looks really good. I went with kind of a more, a slightly deeper red on this guy than I did on the first Colossus I did. I kind of like it. Here's the bandana. Went ahead and glued that together. The shading looks real good. It's nice and subtle. It's not too crazy punchy. A good example of the metallic effect is like right here on the arm. So I painted these guys a slightly brighter metallic, and then I dry brushed these straps. All these guys right here are all the buckles. There's 8 of them, and those go right here. So those are the same color as this, so those will get glued in later after I do the gloss metallic, because if I put them in now to be a pain in the ass to mask, it's going to be really a pain in the ass to mask these areas off anyway. So those will get glued in at the very end. Let's see what else. Oh, I can kind of show you what this will look like against the metal since I got this head done. I just got to do the eyes, which I think will just go white. I think his eyes are just white. I think that's what I did on the... So we do this red. So I think this is going to look pretty nice. So we got a little deeper, richer red, not so bright on this guy. I'm kind of digging it. I think it fits his kind of like the look of him, a little more angry. Where's the bandana? Here's this. So this will go in here. Nope, it goes in like that. Only goes one way. So there you go. I think it's going to look good. It's looking a little orange in the camera here. It's not quite that orange. But yeah, so that's it for this work in progress. We're going to, tomorrow, after this all dries, we're going to do some more masking and get ready for the gloss. It may take me all day to just mask. I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot of it. For the pants here, that same red. It'll be hard to mask off these belt loops, but I wanted those the same color as the pants, so we'll mask this all. The belt will go shiny metallic red, and then we'll have to do the X-Men logo at the end. But I think this looks really good. I think it's going to be a nice looking piece when we're done. So that's it for this work in progress. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.